I just want you all to know, am I echoing? Hello. I just want you all to know words hurt. Say it once, haha, joke. Say it weekly, it starts to dig in. Not that that's going to change you guys making those jokes. I just wanted you to know I love you, I think, a whole lot more than you guys like me. So, do you feel guilty? If so, there's going to be an invitation after this. I don't know if there are enough seats on the front row, but we could probably fill in the second rows as well. Y'all can confess your sins to the Lord of bullying, and He is faithful to forgive. So, I may not be, but He is. So, no, I'm kidding. Let's pray, and then we'll get into our lesson for today. Father, you are good. God, I love you so much, and I thank you for this time that we have to be together today, to open up your word and to see what it has to say to us. And Father, as we continue in the book of Matthew, as we continue to see how Matthew lays this story in front of us of Jesus and his teachings, but also, Father, his authority in teaching, but also his authority over illness, and as we're going to see today, authority over the natural created order and authority over the spiritual realm. Father, may we fall under the authority of King Jesus. And Father, as we're going to see today, may we fear not the things that everybody else would fear, but may we be in awe of our King who controls all of it. Anything that we might be afraid of, may we be reminded of the fact that Jesus is in control of all of it. We love you. We thank you for your Son, Jesus, and for the hope that we have in him. I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. If you got a Bible, go to Matthew chapter 8. Matthew chapter 8, we're going to continue there today, starting in verse 18. Before we do that, I want to remind us of a couple of things. In the first couple of weeks of the series, and then, again last week, we looked at these two questions. What is Matthew's goal in writing this eyewitness account? So in writing his gospel, what is Matthew's goal in writing this, and what is he trying to convince his readers to see and believe? And what does he want us to believe? What is he trying to convince us of, church? That Jesus is God, yes, but what else? Jesus is King. We've been talking about this for 7 months, guys. Jesus is King. He has authority over all things. Jesus is King. And last week what we saw is the people were astonished by his authority in teaching, the authority of King Jesus to teach, but also to exercise control and power over illness and disease, right? We saw this last week where Jesus cleanses a leper. And we see the Old Testament talk about the fact that the only person that can cure leprosy is God, right? The only one that has the power to cure leprosy, to cleanse someone from leprosy, is God himself. And who does it? Jesus does it. And so as Ethan articulated for us just a moment ago, Matthew also wants us to see that Jesus is God. That if God alone can cure leprosy, then who is Jesus? He's God, right? And then we saw Jesus move on from there. He goes to Capernaum, and there's a Roman centurion that comes to him, and he goes, "Oh, my servant has fallen ill. Can you heal him?" And Jesus is like, "Yeah, should I go to your house?" And he goes, No. Here's the thing. I'm a man under authority. I recognize that you are a man of authority. All you need to do is just say the word. Just say the word. He goes and he touches the leper, but the Roman centurion goes, No. All you got to do is just say it. I believe that if you just say it, my servant will be healed. And Jesus says, go, and it will be done as you believe. Right? And then we see Jesus heal Peter's mother-in-law. He goes into Peter's house in Capernaum, and his mother-in-law has fallen ill. She's lying in bed with a fever, and Jesus goes over and he touches her hand, and immediately she gets up, and what does she start to do? She starts to serve him. Not because he goes, hey, get up and serve, but because out of the gratitude and joy of her being healed, that was her response. What do you need? What can I do? How can I help? And so today we're going to continue looking at this narrative in Matthew 8 where we're going to see a lot of these things. And I thought this was a movement of the Spirit. This was just Sam following along with the series and was like, I'm going to pick this song because I think it falls in line with what Dustin was preaching today. So this morning I was like, man, Sam is in tune with the Spirit. And yes, but also I think Sam was just in tune with Matthew 8. So he sang the song, Anywhere with Jesus. And we're going to see this in the text today that if you look in verse 18 of Matthew chapter 8, he gave the order to go to the other side of the sea. And then in verse 23, as he got into the boat, and then verse 28, when he got to the other side, we're going to follow this narrative of Jesus going from place to place and how his disciples follow him in that. But in verse 18, this is what we read. When Jesus saw a large crowd around him. Are we surprised by the fact that Jesus sees a large crowd around him? What has he been doing? First, he taught, and as he taught, there were large crowds, right? But then he starts healing people, and he starts casting out demons from people. And do you think people are like, oh, that's pretty cool, but like, I'm busy? Or do you think Jesus starts healing people and people flock, right? Yes, I think that's the case, especially since Mark's gospel points out that Jesus, after healing Peter's mother-in-law, is healing people all night. And he's casting out demons all night. Everyone in Capernaum is coming to Jesus for healing. When he sees this large crowd around him, he gave the order to go to the other side of the sea. So right now, if you look at, here's the Sea of Galilee right here, and I'm going to do this for y'all. I'm not going to do it for me. I'm going to do it for y'all. If you see the Sea of Galilee right here, it's like an oval, okay? Up here in the northwest is Capernaum. And they are going to cross southeast to the bottom of this oval. So it's a long trek across the sea. If they had gone straight across, it would have been a lot faster. But they are making a diagonal trek across the sea down to the Gadarenes, which we'll see in a couple sections, okay? But they're going to cross to the other side of the sea, and again, not straight across, a long journey, okay? A scribe approached him and said, "Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go." A scribe, okay? One of the people who would also teach and copy down matters of the law, copy down the scriptures. A scribe approached him and said, "Teacher, Rabbi, I will follow you wherever you go." Okay, I love this distinction here because as we're going to see here in a moment, and we'll talk about this here in a moment, one of the disciples says what? Verse 21, first word, underlined, read it. Lord, right? So the scribe calls him teacher, calls him rabbi, recognizes his authority to teach, but doesn't recognize his authority as king, right? Interesting. But he says, "I will follow you wherever you go." That's an awesome thing to say, right? That's a great thing to say. I will follow Jesus wherever Jesus tells me to go, wherever he leads, I will follow. We sing songs about that. Where he leads me, I will follow, right? Chris Tomlin, where you go, I'll go. Where you stay, I'll stay. He sang it a lot better than I did, but you get the point. I will follow you wherever you go. This is Jesus' response. Jesus told him, "Foxes have dens, and the birds of the sky have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head." What is he letting this scribe know when he says, "I will follow you wherever you go"? What is he letting him know? Okay, that's awesome. But I do want to let you know that this is not going to be as fun as you think it is. Like, you're seeing a lot of really cool stuff, right? You've heard me teach, you've seen these miracles, and so you're saying you'll follow because of that. But I want you to know that this isn't going to be comfortable. Do we understand that? Like, I think when we get it in our heads, when we're like, "Oh, I'm going to follow Jesus," it's going to be amazing, and it will, and it will. But we're also following in the footsteps of a man who went to a cross. Not just the man who did all of these awesome things, we're also following in the footsteps of the one who died, who calls us to pick up our cross and die. Right? This is not all fun and games. Jesus is like, if you're going to follow me, that's awesome. I just want you to know this is not going to be comfortable. I want you to consider the cost. And Charlie talked about this a couple weeks ago. Okay? Also, I've underlined Son of Man here because I think this is interesting. Bible nerd moment here. Ezekiel is called Son of Man quite a bit by God in Ezekiel, which just means human. As God is referencing Ezekiel, he calls him Son of Man. He's just calling him a human. But if you look in Daniel, there's a reference to the Son of Man being the one who will have a kingdom that all other kingdoms will fall subject to. Meaning, if you have a king, what are you? gave it away. If you have a kingdom, what are you? King, right? So the Son of Man is the one to whom all other kingdoms will fall subject, right? The one that everyone will bow to. This is Jesus saying, like, I am him. Okay? Keeps going. Verse 21, Lord, another of his disciples said, first, let me go bury my father. Seems like a reasonable request, right? I'll follow you, but I gotta take care of this thing. And this thing, by the way, Dad died. And that's a heavy thing. But Jesus told him, follow me and let the dead bury their own dead. So we see these two moments where these people make these declarations of faith and a desire to follow after Jesus. And Jesus hits them with a harsh reality, right? Following Jesus doesn't guarantee blessing or comfort here on earth. That's the first reality. Following Jesus doesn't guarantee blessing or comfort here on earth. Now, what is the reward for us? Is the reward great enough to circumvent all of that? Yeah. He says, I'm going to prepare a place for you. That place, not here, there. Yes, we understand that? I am going to prepare a place for you in my Father's house. That's not here. Here, there's going to be trouble. He says that in John 16:33. In this world you will have trouble. James 1:2 says, consider it pure joy, my brothers, when you face trials of various kinds. Like, it's not going to be fun all the time here. It doesn't guarantee blessing or comfort here on earth. And I think we need to see and recognize this for those of us that have either followed Jesus for some time or are considering following Jesus maybe for the first time, is that this is not always great. Jesus tells his disciples, you will be persecuted on account of my name. This is not always sunshine and roses. Even though we sing about blue skies and rainbows, it's not always blue skies and rainbows, right? Here's the other thing. Following Jesus demands that he receives our allegiance, even over our families and family obligations. And I think family is just one of the many things. There are a lot of other things that we could say, Jesus, look, I would love to follow you, but let me just fill in the blank. I'll follow you, but let me just enjoy this unholy relationship real quick. Real quick. And then when I'm done with that, I'll come follow you. Or Jesus, I really like lying. I love it. I'm a big fan of lying. I love deceiving people. Let me just do that and let that run its course and even pay the consequences of it, and then I'll follow you. Let me just blank. And Jesus says, no, it's me. You're going to follow me, you're going to follow me. All of these other obligations, let them fall to the wayside. It's me first. Me first, right? He continues, okay? The journey continues. As he got into the boat, his disciples followed him. Suddenly, a violent storm arose on the sea, so that the boat was being swamped by the waves. But Jesus kept sleeping. So much here in these two verses. So again, he's finally in the boat. The crowds were gathering. They were calling out to him, we're going to follow you. And he's like, okay, but here's the thing. Here's the cost. And so they finally get into the boat. They set off for the other side of the sea. And suddenly, along their journey, a violent storm. Okay? This is seismos megas. Seismos megas in the Greek. A violent storm. Now, when you hear the word seismos or seismic, what do you think of? Earthquakes, right? Earthquakes. That's how seismographer or something? I don't know. That's how we measure it's a storm measurement, earthquake measurement, seismos, okay? Now, a violent storm, megas, big storm, big earthquake, big violent storm, okay? Really cool thing. Matthew uses these same words to describe the earthquake that takes place when Jesus comes out of the tomb. So here we see Jesus about to calm a seismos megas. But when he comes out of the tomb, what is caused? Seismos megas. Bible nerd, does anyone else think that's cool? I think that's really cool. Anyway, Suddenly, a violent storm arose on the sea so that the boat was being swamped by the waves. Now, these are expert fishermen, right? A lot of these men have been fishing for a long time. They are encountering a storm that is unlike anything they've ever seen because they're afraid, right? They've been in storms before. This one freaks them out. And as they are freaked out, what is Jesus doing? Right? Fully asleep. Jesus is chilling. They are freaking out, and he is very much not. Right? So the disciples came and woke him up, as one would. Right? Ah! Right? Wake up! Do you not see? Lord, save us. We're going to die. Mark's gospel says, do you not care that we are perishing? Do you not care that we're about to die? Jesus, wake up. What are you doing sleeping right now? This is not the time for sleep. Jesus, you can sleep later. Right now, right? Storm. Big storm. Seismos megas. Big storm. Lord, save us. We're going to die. He said to them, why are you afraid? You of little faith. Is their response appropriate given what is going on? Or at least, is their response understandable? Yeah. They're freaking out because they feel like they're about to die. They feel like they're about to perish. They feel like this storm is going to overtake them. The waves are going to overtake the ship. It's going to capsize. They're all going to drown in the storm. And so their response makes sense. But this is Jesus' response to their response. Why are you afraid? O you of little faith. There was a part of my life where I read this differently than what I read it now. And maybe it was because my view of God was of a disappointed father at times in my life, where this is Jesus scolding his disciples. I read it differently now. I don't know if this is Jesus scolding them. I think this is him being tender with them. After everything you've seen, after everything you've witnessed, after everything you've experienced, why are you afraid? Why is your faith so small? Then he got up and he rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. Shh. Quiet. Peace. Be still. And the storm stops. Now, what were they afraid of? They were afraid of dying. They were afraid of the storm, right? Now, the men were amazed and asked, what kind of man is this? Even the winds and the sea obey him. What are they afraid of now? Who is this guy? Are they still afraid? Yeah. Where did the fear shift? Not to the storm, but to the one who can take the reins. Not to the waves, but to the one that can silence them. Not to the winds, but to the one that can stop them. Their fear shifts. And it's not fear of like, oh no, it's awe. They're blown away by Jesus. What kind of man is this? Even the winds and the sea obey him, just as the chaos is brought to order with the word in Genesis 1, where we see the Spirit of God hovering over the surface of the deep, right? These chaos waters, this full disorder of the universe. What does God do day by day? He speaks and brings the world to order. And just as he does that in Genesis 1, Jesus brings the chaotic storm to stillness with a single word. Stop. Peace. Be still. King Jesus has authority, not just over illness and disease, not just authority and teaching, but over everything that he's created. He can silence it with a word. And when he addresses his disciples, he addresses them as if they should already know this. Why are you afraid? What is there to be afraid of? Right? He continues. When he had come to the other side. Now Jesus has arrived. Again, remember, he was up here in the northwest. They sailed to the southeast to the region of the Gadarenes, or Gadara. This is one of the cities of the Decapolis. Okay? Roman-occupied area. This is Gentile territory. When they had come to the other side, to the region of the Gadarenes, 2 demon-possessed men met him as they came out of the tombs. Now, Mark and Luke each identify that there's one man, but I think it's because they're focusing on the one that is more vocal, the one that says, I am legion, for we are many. Matthew identifies that there are 2 men. He doesn't just focus on the more vocal of the 2. He identifies there are 2 men. 2 demon-possessed men met him as they came out of the tombs. So, where do these unclean spirits keep these men at? It's underlined on the screen. The tombs. Yep, I did this for your benefit. Okay, when I underline a word, that's probably because I want you to say it out loud. They came out of the tombs. They were confined to the tombs. They come out to meet Jesus. They were so violent that no one could pass that way. These 2 men were so violent, no one even wanted to go near these tombs because of them. Suddenly, they shouted, I love this, "What have you to do with us, Son of God?" And maybe they didn't shout it like that because of this next phrase, "Have you come here to torment us before the time?" So do you think they shouted boldly at Jesus? Or why do they think he's there? Have you come here to torment us before the time? Hey, it's not time yet. What are you doing here? What does that sound like to you? Have you come here to torment us? What does that sound like? Fear. Fear. Why? Because who do they acknowledge him as? Son of God. I don't think this is like, what are you doing here? I don't think they're shouting at him with boldness. I think they're terrified. What are you doing here? Why are you here? What have you to do with us, Son of God? James references this. Even the demons believe and shudder, right? They're afraid of him. Have you come here to torment us before the time? A long way off from them, a large herd of pigs was feeding. And why in this region is there a herd of pigs? Let's think about this. If pigs are unclean for Jews, what territory is this? This is Gentile territory. Pigs abound, right? Pigs everywhere. If you drive us out, the demons, what? Begged him. Send us into the herd of pigs. If you're going to drive us out, please do it this way. And maybe their thought, and there's a lot of, believe it or not, this is a passage that is widely contested among scholars, because what even is it? What is going on here? Right? Maybe the demons think, if you drive us out, where might he send them? Back to where they belong. But instead, maybe they're looking for a way out. Like, hey, since it's not time yet, don't drive us out to where we belong. Drive us out into these pigs. But what did the pigs do upon Jesus sending the demons into the pigs? Go, he told them. So when they had come out, they entered the pigs, and the whole herd rushed down the steep bank into the sea and perished in the water. They were like, ha, freedom. Jesus has saved us. He has spared us. And what do the pigs do? You seen that scene in The Lion King where Simba is there and he feels the rumbling of the rocks, and then the herd of wildebeest just comes down over the hill? That's what I picture. It's probably not the best picture, but that's what I picture in this scene when the pigs rush down the hill into the water. The demons are like, and then it's like, and then they drown. Anyway, it's anticlimactic. When they had come out, It's also it's very climactic in Lion King. Anyway, moving on. So, that's like a whole big part of the story. If you haven't seen Lion King, what are you doing? Anyway, but if you've seen or read Hamlet, you know Lion King anyway. So here we go. Moving on. That's the last thing I'll say about Lion King this time. So they perished in the water. Then pay attention, because what happens with the demons? What are they doing here? They beg him. Okay? Pay attention. Then the men who tended them fled. These men that are with the herd of pigs, they see the pigs freak out, rush down a hill into the water, and these guys are like, yeah, right? As pigs do. These pigs are dirty. They're like, hey, it's time for a bath, right, guys? No, the men who tended the pigs did what? They fled. Why? What just happened, right? They freaked out. They went into the city and they reported everything, as you would, especially what had happened to those who were demon-possessed. Pay attention. At that, the whole town went out to meet Jesus. When they saw him, what did they do? They begged him to leave their region. So let's go back to last week, because I think what Matthew has done here in chapter 8 is really cool. He's shown a tale of two responses among two different people groups, okay? You see this leper who demonstrates great faith by coming to Jesus in the middle of a crowd and saying, if you are willing, you can make me clean. What does Jesus say? I am willing. Be clean. And his leprosy leaves him because Jesus reaches out and touches him, right? Your leprosy is gone. We see great faith from a Jewish man, but we also see great faith from a Gentile, right? We see great faith from a Roman centurion who comes to Jesus and goes, look, I know that if you just say this with a word, my servant will be healed. And then today we look at Jesus' own disciples who have little faith on the water. So we see great faith from among the Jewish people, and we also see little faith from among those who walk with him daily. And then we see Jesus go to this Gentile region, and just like we saw a Gentile with great faith, what do we see here? Get out. Leave. Get away. They beg him to leave. And so, I think this is a microcosm for what we see across the board with Jesus. Is that there are those among his people that were like, yeah, we believe that he's the Christ, the Son of the living God, and we are going to put our faith in him. And there are those among the Jewish people that do what? They reject him. They don't have faith in him. If they have faith, it's little faith. But most of even the religious elite are like, nah, we're going to kill this guy. And then you see among the Gentiles, and Matthew will mention other Gentiles in his gospel that demonstrate great faith in Jesus. But there are also some who reject him. Because the reality is, for some of us, when met with authority, recognizing especially Jesus' authority, we want to fall under that authority. We want to submit and lift up our worship to that king, and some of us buck against authority, don't we? No. Jesus wants to control my life. Jesus wants to tell me what to do. No, thank you. Is he even who he says he is? I don't just see that in the world. I see it in churches where we reject the authority of the king. And so, King Jesus has authority over the spiritual realm and spiritual beings. They recognize him and his authority when they say, what do you have to do with us, O Son of God? So 2 questions, and then I'm done. Went a little longer today, but I got up here a little later, so it's fine. 2 questions. Okay, first question is this. Is there an area of your life where you are evading obedience or allegiance to King Jesus? Is there an area of your life where you are evading obedience or allegiance to King Jesus? And we talked about this earlier with the whole, well, just let me and then I'll come follow. Or maybe for some of us, it's not let me do this and then I'll come follow. It's let me do this and also try and follow. And does that work? No, because if I want to do my thing and also kind of follow him, who am I acknowledging as king? Is it him? If I want to do my thing, who am I acknowledging as king? Me. I want to do my thing. So is there an area of your life where you are evading obedience or allegiance to King Jesus? That's the first question. Second question is this. Is your fear and awe of King Jesus greater than your fear of anything else in your life? Is your fear and awe of King Jesus greater than your fear of anything else in your life? The disciples on the water figured out very quickly not to be afraid of the storm. Why? Why? Because who controls it? The one that's in the boat. Now, this is, I think, speaking specifically to Jesus having control over the natural order. But let's take this a little bit into further application, because there are a lot of things I'm afraid of that I think Jesus would gently come to me and say, why are you afraid of that? Why is that holding you back? Why is that freaking you out? And then we have moments like Peter, who, like later on when he sees Jesus walking on the water, what does he say? Call to me. Like, tell me to come out of the boat, and I'll get out of the boat, and I'll walk to you, right? And it's this really cool moment where Peter is like, whoa, this is so cool, right? This is awesome. And then, instead of keeping his eyes on the one who's keeping him on top of the water, what does he do? Oh, this storm is bad. These waves are high. This wind is fast. And what does he do? He begins to sink, because he took his eyes off of the one in control, and he put his eyes on the other things to be afraid of. And so, again, is your fear and awe of King Jesus greater than your fear of anything else in your life? Because here's the thing. What do all of us in some way or another fear? Maybe spiders. Yeah, 1 second. That was the right answer. Maybe spiders. I'm afraid of spiders. Jesus created spiders. I have nothing to be afraid of. That's a silly example. I'm afraid of alligators. And maybe you're not afraid of alligators, but have you ever seen one up close? If you did, you'd be like, well, okay, I'm also afraid of alligators. I'm afraid of lions. I'm very afraid of lions. A couple years ago, we took a zoo trip with the kids, and the lion exhibit at the Akron Zoo, there's like a platform where the lions can lay down that's like right on the other side of the glass. And you don't realize how big a lion is until it's right there. And Jubilee had just been born at the time, I think, and Jubilee was crying. And this big lioness who is like sleeping and just kind of laying there and chilling in the hot sun, she hears Jubilee cry, and she lifts her eyes up and looks right at this little baby. And all of us were like, right? Oh no, this is bad. If you've never been up close and personal with a lion, you wouldn't know to be afraid of a lion. But in that moment, I was like, oh, I'm terrified of lions. Guess what? God shut the mouths of lions. And as Charlie said, Charlie, what is everyone in some way, shape, or form afraid of? Death. Guess what? Guess what? Jesus defeated death so that you wouldn't have to fear it. Isn't that awesome? Even the thing that most, if not all people would say, I'm terrified of this. I'm terrified of the day that I die. Jesus says you don't have to be afraid of that, because it's just a stepping stone to the next thing. Is your fear and awe of King Jesus greater than your fear of anything else in your life? If it's not, I would encourage you to read about King Jesus. And when you read about him, and when you read about what he's capable of, and you read about the authority that he has over sickness and illness and disease, and when you read about the authority that he has to teach in ways that are mighty and awesome and holy, and when you read about the authority that he has over the created order, and you read about the authority that he has over demons and the spiritual realm, and when you read about the authority that he has over death, what is there to be afraid of? What is there to fear at all? Nothing. Nothing. And why? Not because those things aren't terrifying, right? Are all of those things terrifying? Yes. They're not as terrifying as the one that's in the boat with you, though. They're not as terrifying as the one who is in the furnace with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who kept them from burning. There's a lot of stuff to be afraid of, but none of them compare to our King. And for that, and the song that we're about to sing, for that, we have so much to be thankful for. So here in a moment, we are going to sing. Sam has our invitation song and our closing prayer today. Sam has our closing prayer. So if you have any prayer requests today, you can text those to Sam. Sam's number is 614-601-1598. Again, that's 614-601-1598. Sam will pray over any requests that you text to him, or if you post something in the comments on Facebook Live, Corey will send that to Sam and he can pray over that. You also have an opportunity to come forward today. Like I said, I expect to see all of you up here for bullying me. And I will forgive you because Jesus tells me to. But if there's anything that you would like to come up here for, Charlie and Joe will be up here to receive you. You will be surrounded. You will be prayed over. We also, if your request, you want to be kept anonymous, that's okay. We have a prayer board in the back. You can go and write down your prayer request. You can put it on the prayer board, and our leadership will be praying over that this week. Church, I love you. I want to pray, and then we'll sing together. Father, you are good. And we thank you for this time that we have to look at your word and to see what it has to say to us. And Father, my prayer is that you would help us to fix our eyes on Jesus. There are a lot of things in this world that distract us and pull our attention away from him. There are a lot of things to be afraid of in this life. There are a lot of things that draw our attention and keep us uneasy. And yet our King has control over all of it. There are a lot of things that cause us to be anxious, and yet our King has control over all of it. Father, may we not be afraid of the storm, but may we be in awe of the one who calms it. May we be faithful to King Jesus, and may we trust him to help us navigate the ins and outs of life. And may we remember that even though death is coming for all of us, for those that have put their faith and trust in King Jesus, death is not the end. But we have life forevermore with you. And Father, as we sing this song and we express that gratitude to you, my prayer is that we would not just express that gratitude to you now, but that we would walk out of here ready to live that way this week, remembering who it is that we follow and who it is that we serve. I love you. I thank you so much for Jesus. It's in his name I pray.